formed a band in the school, and just took it from there. And then I when I was at I haven't studied music. I went to art college. Art was my thing, but music kind of vied for my attention and slowly took over. But I did take a few years classical guitar lessons because I enjoyed a guitarist in Genesis called Steve Hackett, and he had a lot of solo nylon string guitar. I wanted to know how to do that. My sight reading was still poor, but I was able to get the arpeggios and the various things that I wanted to get out of it, so I could put them into writing. Writing became a real thing for me, composing, and still harking back to that Bontempi organ, chord changes, messing around with keys, stuff like that. And then I just learned basic keyboards, studio stuff, bass, all the other things that I needed to do to write and record, and then being in other bands and drafting other people in. So yeah.
And did your art actually help in the music? Are you working with that skill? Because you said you studied art and that was your thing.
A little now. I mean, in my 20s, I was an illustrator, a freelance illustrator, and I worked for educational books and things like that. And I remember seeing a video of Segovia, and he was playing in some sort of Spanish palace or something, and it's towards the end of his life, I believe, and he was saying, my life has been one ascending line, and it kind of explained how he'd just done one thing, which was to bring folk guitar, classical guitar, from the folk world and into a concert area, and I thought, he's had this one line, and I'm all over the place. I've got art, guitar, these things. What a mess my life is. So, but then I realised, and this is probably when I started doing Cardaressa, that if I brought all of these elements together, the things that I'm interested in, which is a lot of Gothic stuff, a lot of esoteric kind of things, my art, surrealism, all of this kind of stuff, all these other instruments, and then brought it together, I realised that I had my own ascending line. It was just all tons of stuff that was coming together.
You just brought all these different elements together and worked them like a puzzle.
And art was a part of that. I stopped being a freelance artist when I was about 30, and I did other work. But I've always, saying that, I had a friend who was at art college who did a lot of my album artwork. But since I lost touch with him, I then went on and did it. So I still do my own artwork.
So your beautiful artwork on your website, by the way, if you want to check Richard Wildman, it's www.richardwildman.co.uk. You can also check Amy Fry's music on Facebook. It's Amy Fry Music, right? On your website, we've seen beautiful art that goes on the different singles.
That's all mine.
Yeah. That's your work.
Yeah.
We was looking at that, and we was listening to some of the recent recordings from the album that you released as well, and with covers.
Yeah.
Which we'll probably talk about that shortly, sure. But the artwork especially. So you've been able to incorporate the passion from something that you were doing. You've put that to one side, because the music does take so much of your time. The artwork is something else you have to get into a certain kind of frame of mind, haven't you? So
and there's things as well which is even a stronger crossover. Like I did a series of pieces of music called Surrealisms that were based on surrealist paintings. And so there was one of those by Salvador Dali, which is called Autumn Cannibalism, and it's got knives and forks. It's got this amorphous thing eating itself.
Okay. Yeah.
So on that recording, I used knives and forks, stuff like that. There's a piece I did called "There's No Finished World," and that was based on Andre Breton's painting, and I guess the surrealist idea that you put yourself in a semi-dreamlike state. And scribble. You can make yourself tired or whatever.
Scribble, like free writing. I've used that process myself in a way.
And then you look at what you've done, and then you try and make sense of it, filling it in. So when I did a piece of music based on that title, I put the guitar down and just set the recorder and just plonked away with nothing. I don't even know how the guitar was held. So it was just completely random, and I didn't put myself in a dream state, but I just was very relaxed and I was kind of,
just recording it.
So and then when I got that, I took whatever that was and turned it into a structure and filled it in as you would fill in the painting. So there's ways of bringing
very
art
interesting
into,
process, because
order out of chaos, right?
Yeah. So it's just other ways of, you know.
So would you say that the art, in the end, strengthened your music, because just simply on the basis of having art produced for each single or that you actually make, that is enticing for the viewer? You know, I'm looking for music, but I'm seeing beautiful pieces of art there, like paintings. You know, and I don't know which one to choose, because they're all so beautiful. So the Forked Road, that's the new one, 2024 release. That has got such a it's like a white and grey colours, right. And really.
Well, I use me because I'm very cheap.
So would you say that it kind of propped it up, that music has been also propped up a little bit by the art, and in the end
I think it comes from similar parts of the brain, really.
Well, one props the other up, right?
I think it's all intertwined. If you're that way inclined, it's like writing lyrics, or you know, there's all these different strands that you can bring into it.
Can cross disciplines. It's
I mean, you can take influences from other stuff and bring it in. Definitely.
So of all the projects that which are the projects that have taken you just up to sort of recent times? Say we'll go to pre-COVID, because we can maybe talk about that. The big happening which we've all sort of experienced, and we've all diverted into various directions since from that moment. But going up to COVID, like, what was there must have been the most fantastical musical achievement, should we call it that? You know, the culmination of your sort of past to now.
Well, I kind of, in my 20s, I had a band called Lives and Times. We did quite a few albums, but that was I look back at that now and think of that as my training ground, really, where I got into recording and gigging and writing and all that sort of stuff. But then I just gone past being 30, I decided to do this project called Carda Estra, which was a studio-based thing where I could bring in a lot of influences from classical and soundtrack music, as well as experimental music, electronic music, all this kind of stuff, and just have fun overlaying. I mean, I also look at another similar thing is I look at recording like a painting and live music like a sculpture. So that is another visual way of looking at stuff. So this was to be totally a painting. And you can do anything. So an obvious example is it's quite easy to paint space. It's much harder to sculpt space, if that makes sense. You got to think around it a little bit more. So once I just concentrated on the painting, I didn't have to worry about how I was going to represent it in 3D. It was purely a recording. And so I could just overlay instruments, and I didn't have to worry if I wanted orchestral tones. I could get a violinist in and record them several times and all this kind of stuff. So, and that, I think, pre-COVID, for me, that was probably the one major thing where I think I did something that I was kind of pushing myself, and it was interesting. It was quite challenging. I used to get some interesting musicians to collaborate with as well, and that could be quite. It pushed me. I did an album called Strange Relations, which, I mean, Amy's on tons of this stuff, and I worked with a drummer called Paul Sears from the Muffins, an American drummer, very prog avant jazz drummer, and some of the stuff I sent him my guides and things like that, but others he would send me a very tricky solo over 9 minutes, really, and I composed to it, and that was a real challenge. But once I'd done it,
opposed to an actual percussion solo, right?
And it was a solo, I mean, really tricky. So and I would do it in 20-second stints, you know, because the meters and the everything was changing. It was like running water. So that was good. So that was good, and so that's one. And the other thing is, in 2018, I came out of my little tortoise shell and decided I was going to try and play live again. I sing in my day job, so I had done some singing as a community musician, but not my own stuff. And that was a real challenge to have, because the voice is, for me, it's one of the most interesting things to do, but it's also the hardest to listen back to, because it is so personal. It is so you are vulnerable, really. So when I decided I was going to do this thing and stick my name on it and start getting back into lyrics and all this kind of stuff, but I've been quite pleased with the way it's come out, really, and myself and Amy have done all sorts of little gigs, and we have started dragging some of the Card Restra pieces into it, but very stripped down versions. So it was how you make those paintings back into the sculpture, but a very simple sculpture. We've gone out as a duo for quite a few years now, but a duo is quite good, as you guys know. If you know, we both sing. Amy's a multi-instrumentalist. I've got all the chords covered on the guitar.
Just remind us, Amy, what do you play?
Sorry, I play clarinet, saxophone, and the main two, but I have baritone, saxophone, tenor, soprano, alto.
And you sing, obviously.
And sing, yes, yeah.
She plays piano. She's also played bass live with me as well. And she plays. There's
many times over the years that I've been lucky enough to have had performed with you, Amy, haven't we? You played in the Knot with us for a while, and then coach mainly. And there was some fantastic times with that band, and we had you on the clarinet with the saxophone. I think we had you singing occasionally. We did some vocals and things.
Yeah.
So just with the same sort of question that we was phrasing with Richard, there must have been, apart from the birth of your beautiful, wonderful children, taking us up to COVID.
Yeah.
As a timeline.
Yeah.
What was the pinnacle just to going up to there? Because obviously we go through where you've studied university, classically trained, and obviously the stepping into the original bands thing is a very different world. And I was lucky enough that we got to perform together in that time. I mean, I'm going to say, the coach thing for me was a fantastic experience. 3-4 years or whatever it was. What was the culmination of your musical journey taking you up to COVID?
Yeah, I don't think it was a pinnacle. I think coming from university, where I've done a bit of jazz, classical, those sort of styles, and then moving back to Swindon, and I trained to be a teacher, secondary teacher, school teacher, but then I was a peripatetic, so I did saxophone, clarinet, flute teaching, but then I met local musicians, and I remember the time saying to me, "Oh, you playing bands?" I'm like, "Yeah, I play in bands," but in my mind, it's like it's big bands, it's orchestras, I'd never really been part of a kind of original bands, and so then I started playing in Attica Seasons.
That's right.
With Al Bridges and John Scott and Azul and Sam Bates and Rachel Birkin, so that whole group of musicians, which I really enjoyed. So it started with Attica Seasons, but at the same time then there was a kind of a male group out of that formed a band, and then I saw all the people stood there going, hang on, we could do this.
Yeah, what was the female? Matilda, oh my gosh.
So myself and Becky, who is a piano singing teacher, who's a brilliant performer, Polly, who's a singing teacher, wonderful singer, and Emily, who's a wonderful musician as well, played guitar, and she played drums in Matilda.
Harmonies, you guys, it was wonderful.
4-part harmonies. It's mostly Becky's songs and Emily's songs as well. So we did that, and then Attica Seasons kind of changed into the Ghetto Defendants, which that was fun as well. So I just got getting to know all these Swindon musicians. Obviously we did Coach, which was good fun, and obviously that different people came in and out, and it evolved and changed, but that was fun. And it was just learning to play and create as a group that I hadn't ever done before.
It was such a cool experience, and so rewarding and enriching.
It was, and I feel like I learned just as much doing that as I had learning classical music my whole
working
childhood.
With others is a different
it is
aspect
a whole different thing,
isn't
and
it?
just being creative in that way. There's so many other bands then that I played with. So many.
Everybody was vying for your services back then,
sometimes it might just be 1 or 2 gigs here and there, and sometimes it might have been a bit longer. I remember I played with Dive Bomb Revolution for a competition, and we played 2,000 Trees because they won for that, so I got to play that. So lots of different things.
We've applied to that festival, haven't we? 2,000 Trees.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And then playing local festivals. I mean, was it Sugar
Sugar Breeze,
Sugar Hill,
Summer Breeze Festival, and Sugar Hill.
Yeah, I think one turned into or something. It was just getting to know so many people, and the music. For me, it felt like the music scene was huge, and so many people, and you'd go out on a weekend and you watched a band here or you'd watch a band there, and it was fantastic. Really, really busy, but great, really great. So
that took us up to the COVID situation, say, because obviously when that all happened, as musicians and artists, we were all pigeonholed. We've talked about this with our previous guests, and we've had some interesting takeouts from. Was with Ellis, he learnt a lot, and we did a lockdown. We had the band on, as you may well have seen us. So we did performances every day. What did you do? What did you do to kind of facilitate the music? Because you had the children at home. How did you cope with the COVID thing? What did you take from that?
We had a studio built at home, to be honest, just after that. So recording at home and getting to kind of used to that. We did a couple of videos, didn't we?
Yeah.
And also, you were working on some music, and I was able to record kind of my parts.
Yep.
At home. We were talking about how many times I sent you stuff. So that was great. So that's something I would like to do more. But then obviously, back into kind of a new normality means time is difficult to.
Have you not found that the working from home but still using the internet, using live streams, streaming sort of has become parallel to say the live performance thing, or say you would say you just started venturing out into the live scene, Richard, but actually the lockdown for me revealed a whole new audience and a whole new way of accessing them. And we were performing and doing shows for people in the Canary Islands, sending, they were doing little festivals out there, and we were messaging. It's almost unheard of, and yet now it's almost second nature. Now we could be performing in a local venue, and then we could be performing in this room, and it can be going to someone in another part of the world just doing live streaming. So we should be incorporating that.
Did you feel affected in a positive way by COVID to produce videos and more online presence, or did it not change?
I don't think anything beats being in a room with musicians.
True.
I really don't think it means that. Or going to watch a live performance.
Yes.
I don't think anything can beat that, really.
No, it's true. But we have to sometimes use the tools that are.
Because some people can't get to reasons.
No, of course.
I've got two kind of. I enjoy remote working just as much as live working, and I think there's benefits and pluses and minuses to both. So with a lot of the album work where I've worked. Well, with Carderestra, most of the orchestral musicians would be local, so I would work with them. But a drummer in America, say, or other people that I've worked with from the progressive rock world, for want of a better phrase.
Well, the name that we must bring up, really, is Cavus.
Yes.
Tarabi.
Yeah.
So you did something on lockdown, you worked with him, because you'd worked on a collaboration or done some sort of work with him prior.
Yeah, I've done quite a lot of remote stuff like that, where people send the stems in and I mix it, or they mix it, and a track slowly builds up. And the downside of that is it can, if it's not done right, feel a little stilted because you've not had that interaction. So so the trick is to not make it sound like it's a bunch of files put together, but they're not really got a groove, or they're a little bit out, or they've not got that, whatever that magic is. But we've all been doing it for so long, we're all pretty good at faking it and making it that it does sound like we were in the same room.
There's a lot of software and things we can use to kind of mimic the space.
I've got very basic stuff. I don't really cheat that much in that respect. It's just down to the standard of the musicianship that's going on, really, to be honest. I'm not saying about that me, I'm saying about the collaborators who are a level above me, really. But saying that, the bonus in that situation is when you're jamming together everybody tends to just go into their cliches, into their scales and the things they know. And when you present it with somebody who's giving you something that's needs thinking about, it gives you time to think how you're going to respond and maybe not come up with the obvious way of doing it. Yeah. So with remote working, you do find, or I find, you stretch. You're gonna not do the obvious things you normally do.
It's almost like you approach music more academically that way, rather than.
I don't know if it's academic. I wouldn't say I'm an academic musician, but it gives you a chance to think more laterally. How what's not the obvious.
This is when you're sculpting, and you know that this is going to be a sculpture. You have an idea of what this could look like, and you just want to give it or do it justice.
Yeah, I mean, I like music that does stretch, that does take you into
on a journey,
keys and tonalities that you're not going to necessarily expect.
You should be stretching your boundaries, right?
So and so having time to think about it is good. That is good. So there is that, and with the remote working with Carpus, for say, is one of a few. Back in, I think I did the first collaboration with him in 2011. So he contributed to quite a few albums of mine, and then in return he invited me to do this project called the Exquisite Corpse Game, where the exquisite is another art thing actually, where somebody draws a head, and then you turn the paper over, then you draw a body, turn it over.
Everybody does a separate
and then the legs,
thing,
and then you open it up and you see what the thing is. So he had this idea of a musical version of that. So somebody did 4 minutes of music, passed it on to the next person, but they only had the last 30 seconds, and then built up this exquisite corpse of music. So I contributed to his album of that, and that was that, and I've since released stuff on his label as well.
But how did you get to work with him in the first place?
Well, he was in a band called Cardiacs, and I got into them in, I don't know, about 2005 or something, quite late on, and I can't remember. I think it was probably Facebook or one of the prog forums. I think it was Facebook or something. It was just, I probably sent him a hello, his little hustle. And he said hello back, and probably thought, who's this? And then he listened to my stuff, liked it, and it just went from there. And he's also an artist. He loves a lot of comic art and does a lot of pen and ink stuff. So there's another thing running there. But then he became part of the band Gong.
Yeah, and singing for Gong, right?
Yes, and he had another project called Utopia Strong, and all of a sudden he became very busy. I mean, he was busy before, but he became really busy, and I thought, well, that's probably going to be the collaborations wouldn't happen. But we still did the label stuff. But in lockdown, obviously, what happened to him was what happened to a lot of people who toured a lot, was he had some time on his hands. So he got back in touch with me saying, do you want to collaborate on an album? So I said, yeah, sure.
And that was lockdown?
That was lockdown.
And that was lockdown.
Yes, there was several. I mean, lockdown, I probably did about 4 albums. One where there are 2 collaborations and Toppin and Tailing solo stuff. I did a Card Restaurant ambient thing in a month as well. There's all sorts of stuff.
So and productive, right?
Yeah. I mean, my day job is community musician, and I work in care homes. So the one thing viruses don't want is somebody who's singing over vulnerable people. I had 2 no-goes. I did start doing some online stuff. I just did it for free for a lot of the people that I work with, and then slowly people started to want to pay me, the people the managers I'd worked with before, and then I came back into working when lockdown was finished, and singing there with a mask on and all of that kind of crazy stuff.
And Amy, you're a teacher as well as a musician. How does that strengthen your musicianship, the teaching? How does it work for you? What do you take from it?
Well, because I'm head of music, and I have been for some time.
Lydiard
Park. I'm Lydiard Park at the moment. I feel that when I'm teaching, and if I say I've got a gig at the weekend, or I'm doing this at the moment, or I think they're like, what, you play music? It's like, well, yeah, I this is why I teach it, and I think that's why it's really important that I'm I'm doing music as well as teaching it,
Exactly.
so that I'm hopefully improving, or
in touch.
in touch with what's
Constantly.
in touch with what's going on as well. And then obviously I teach up up to GCSE, so I have to be constantly up to date to make sure I know what I'm doing, but that I think it's good for them to see that you can do it. You can do it if you would like to do it just for fun. When you finish school, or if that's what you want to go into, there is opportunities to do that. So it's a massive part of my job and my hobby, I guess, at the same time.
Do you have any special students, any students that stand out? I know you probably can't talk
All
about,
the time,
but there must be some that are just so they've got them, and you've got them
There's
under your wing,
always-
so there must be some special kids
there's
coming out there right now.
there's always groups of pupils that that have so much potential and love music. They love it. I feel like there needs to be more opportunities for young people. They need
This is true.
whether that's due to funding. I mean, we can go into loads of things when it comes to education, but there needs to be more opportunities. But they want to do music.
Well, what do you find that's holding back some of these the progress then in this sort of field? Then feel free to talk about it. If you want to talk about the funding, what can we do? Let's explore that.
Should we bring more music into the schools?
Yes. Yeah,
How could
they
we
need
do
to
that?
How can
see
we do
live
that?
music, don't they?
Yeah.
They need to see it.
And not just see, but I think get engaged, and
Yeah.
also there are different instruments on offer. Students can learn piano, violin, whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes the parents maybe direct the child to say, "Oh, try piano because I want to have piano." Right? But as we said before,
It's not
not
always
every
like,
instrument
no.
is the path into the
right.
music, right? So
Yeah.
just having even sessions with people at schools where you engage and engage them just in improvising and taking part in the music, because it's so healthy for us, apart from it's obviously therapy for us musicians.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Mm-hmm.
But also it's such a beautiful engaging thing, such a beautiful language that anybody, regardless of level of skill,
Mm-hmm.
or even if they don't play an instrument, they can engage.
Yeah, I'm really lucky being head of music. Obviously, works as well, but because when it comes to national curriculum is it's a double page for music, and it just says they need to perform, they need to listen, they need to compose, and music from different eras, etc. There isn't you have to do this style of music, you have to do that. So I get to create the curriculum,
Pathways
the
too,
pathways, and I'm trying my best so that they experience all different types of music, and really think about what are they going to enjoy, what are they going to get the most out of. So it's a mixture of improvising, composing, listening, singing, anything.
Everybody's
I can
different, and I see
Yeah.
through my students when I teach piano, everybody is different in tendency in what they're good at. So a lot of children will find reading music so boring because you have to focus, you have to really concentrate, right? And this could be a point or a thing that is going to deter them from actually pursuing that instrument, right? So it's kind of balancing it always between giving them something that I can learn from YouTube. So maybe instead of learning it from YouTube, they learn it with the teacher. We go through the chords and we talk about theory, right? So there's a bit of this, and so that variety
there is a
of work.
balance, though, isn't there? There's it's good. Like I said before, it's good to have that ear, train that ear, as well as it might be that actually their ear's trained first and they're able to do it, and then bring the theory and go, oh, that's what I'm doing, and that's what that's how that links, rather than doing all the theory first and then getting to apply it. It needs to be a balance.
I mean, I've got to 50 years old and I'm only just starting to learn these chords that you point out. So you're
He's
quite
having piano
right.
lessons. He's a good pupil. He
Same
learns
boat.
fast.
Amy's still teaching me theory.
You never stop learning if you want to be a musician.
No.
But the one thing you do is you stop growing up. Because we stay children, don't we? I think
That's our way. That's our
Yeah.
way out of adulting. But in a beautiful way, right?
It's true. I think with this music, I've always found it such a joy that you do turn into a child. I think when you're writing, you're getting inspired. I find it extremely releasing, and I'm able to be silly, and you'll be silly and be experimental, and it's very childlike. You want to push the boundaries. You want to. I mean, with the various bands and artists, it's always best to try and live a bit on the edge, slightly, or like you say, push your boundaries, try and do something a bit new. As you with your teaching with the children, you're trying to find these engaging ways. You know, what's the most unusual and a fun way that you get the children? Give us an example of how
I
you
sing the alphabet
capture
backwards every time.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen.
2 chords. We can do that. We can do it. It's just 2 chords. So we will start with singing. I know it sounds, because sometimes singing's the best way, isn't it? And when they first, joined big school, and they were like, oh, don't really want to sing with all these people. So I do it in a kind of way where they're not really thinking about their singing. They think about the letters.
Right.
Everybody who's ever been taught by me will know the alphabet song backwards by now.
Right now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm trying to do the alphabet backwards.
I can teach you by the end of the evening.
Well, we just got it like going the opposite way.
And Rich can make a guitar.
Yeah, it's 2 chords.
Yes.
Yeah, I can possibly cope.
Perfect.
We could turn it into a prog.
Yeah, we do it in 7/8.
Oh, brilliant.
7s for a jazzy version.
I've just got a headache.
But I know that's the way I kind of get them in straight away. Just after lockdown, going back to schools, that was interested in music. We had rules around singing, obviously, in schools, and we were teaching year groups in certain rooms. So all of year 7s were only in English rooms, and so I was like, right, okay, I've got to teach music in English rooms, and I'm not allowed to sing. So I made these pads. They all had drumsticks. They all had different rhythms using these drumsticks. So it was like snare drum grade 1 or something like that. We all kind of
Wow.
So yeah, but that a little bit of that I still use now. Like if we're starting to read rhythms, they will get their drumsticks and have their pads, and homemade pads, not drum pads. Yeah, it's good fun. So that's the idea, making it fun.
Fab. So, but you work in a similar context. So you work in community
musician.
That's right.
So
yeah.
Could you expand upon that?
Yeah. I used to work in a music and disability charity, and then I went freelance. I've been doing it for quite a lot of years now. So I work mainly with adults with learning disabilities or mental health issues. Just getting music accessible to people who've got less access to it. And so I work in, when I say care homes, they're private homes. Can be just somebody lives there on their own, or there might be 4 or 5 people. And I do sessions just one-to-one, or little groups or things like that. And I've got a community music group called Gigabits, and we go out to care homes as well, where for elderly people and often got dementia or something like that. And so we do stuff like that. So yeah, it's.
There was a young lady, Debbie Wolfson.
Yes.
Remember Debbie? It was Music Alive.
Yes,
and
that's where I worked. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, there's a Nexus connection straight away, because I got to know. I recorded. They're not. My first album at a partner's place out in Perth.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Doug's place.
Yeah.
And then got to know Debbie.
Yes.
And then got to actually understand what the Music Alive program was, and it was just fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to witness some of the music therapies using. I think there was light. Some of these light devices where you can interact with it and you can play an instrument, which was just fascinating.
Yeah.
And she had an amazing work ethic, and she was doing so many wonderful things. What happened with that one? Has that just changed names and kind of evolved into something else?
I'm not sure. I've had nothing to do with it for a long time now. I believe it went to Highworth, but I've lost.
Right.
I don't.
It was amazing. So working in it's a similar kind of.
Yes, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Although I'm mobile, rather than people coming to a central place, I go out to places.
Okay,
yeah.
so you have programs then. You've sort of written programs for that specific role or like a purpose or job.
What, as in what I deliver?
Yeah. So
I went through various things. I'm part of a community music organisation. We have things like a code of conduct and how we should go about things. But my main thing is I try and get to know the person or people that I'm working with, and I don't write anything per se. I get to know them and see what they like, or see what they may react the best to, and work along those lines, really. Yeah,
that's probably right, because you both
purpose building music.
Yeah, sure. And it can be somebody may be a piano player and I'm accompanying them somehow. Somebody may have very limited communication. It may be just tapping. It may be just eye movement. There's various ways that you can communicate with people and get musical ideas over, and as long as it gives them a feeling of well-being, and it's a social interaction.
It's a very beautiful thing
like
to
that. So it can be
to
very
bring to somebody's door, really.
Very subtle and quiet, or it can be a real noise-making exercise. Just depends on the person. So I tend not to have my thing that I take to them. I let them build the bridge out to me, and I see where we've got some common ground. Yeah.
I love all those different processes that we managed to bring in through the conversation tonight. The processes of making music, because you mentioned quite a few. This recent one, just that we talked about as a therapy, as a session, right? But also before that, how you composed with collaborations, and how you see it as a sculpture, and different approaches, right? So this is very cool to know.
It's just amazing how the wonderful world of music and crafting and creation can have so many avenues to work down. From the school teacher to you're doing sort of working with special needs, and that's a real specialist in one way, because you're not just say working with these extremely highly talented. They're going to be challenged, but also you're going to be switching lights on with these human beings. Which using music has got to be so fulfilling. I mean,
I don't have a huge, great, like there's a dividing line or anything. It's all music, and it's all sound. I don't really worry about skill levels or anything like that. It's if we're getting on. I mean, I think that as well about what I do with my own music and people like Amy, especially more recently when I started doing the singing and all the rest of it. And music can be very intense, and if you want to make your way in it, make your living out of it, or you've got a project that you want to succeed, or all the rest of it, it can become a very consuming thing to the perpetrator, and it can be damaging to the person who's doing it, because if it doesn't go the way they want, or they feel it's failed or whatever, there's a price to pay in that. And I'm like anybody else, especially when I was young. I wanted a record deal, and I did in my 20s. I was playing in London and doing all the schmoozing and trying to get on Radio 1 and this kind of stuff. But as the years have gone by, I've sort of mellowed about all of that, and I try and make, I suppose, rather than having rehearse, and then there's the gig. You focus on the gig, and the rehearsal's just the pain and the boredom and whatever you got to get through to get to the gig, or the album. You got to record and write and do this stuff, and then this thing, and then always at the end of it, even if you've done a great album or if you've done a lovely gig or whatever, there's always the come down. There's always and so I find it's much easier for me. I'm not saying this is just the way I work, that I make everything just all on a level and nice. So when I have a rehearsal with Amy, we chat for ages. We chat and it's a nice, it's a social thing, and it's not all. It's got to be great. It's got this pressure, and I know that once or the recording's done or whatever, there's another nice thing coming up, and it's to keep that level. I've got this little phrase: music owes you nothing. We put our own things on music, our own ambitions, our own character on music. Music's just this nice little
we add our own weight to it.
Spirit.
It's just tunes. It's just,
and as we gather and improvise or gather in bands and play or perform, it's like we summon the spirit of music, and right, and that's like witches around there.
Yes. I suppose I'm looking at it as I've kind of seen people fall out of love of music, and they
because they're burnt out.
Yes. And overconsumed by the processes sometimes as well.
What they've expected music to do for them, if that makes sense, to either make them a professional, to make them famous, to whatever they expected out of music, they put a weight on music, and this phrase that music owes you nothing, that all came from them, those expectations, that it was just music, it was just melodies and things like that. And if you kind of, for me, I'm not saying, but if you separate that and realise it's how you're approaching stuff gives you burnout, gives you a sense of not achieving or whatever, then you kind of think of music as a nicer thing. It's not done anything to you.
Yeah.
Just take of it what is good, and then how you approach rehearsals, recording, learning an instrument for the first time. It doesn't matter where you are on the scale. If you're playing a ukulele for the first time, or you're playing Wembley, it doesn't matter where you are on that scale. There's always, expectation, disappointment, success, achievement. Just let music be itself and meter out your approach to it. And so this afternoon, I look at this as, it's not, I've got to do an interview because I've got to get that out of the way because I'm doing the interview promo, innit? To sell an album.
I need to sell 50 albums.
I'm going to enjoy this afternoon just as much as I'm going to enjoy recording something. I expect nothing of the afternoon. I expect nothing of music. I'm just charting this
just
little...
being in the moment.
It's taken me a while to get
there. Yeah.
But it's my survival mechanism.
There is that baseline gratitude, isn't there? I think for many musicians, as long as we get to make music and engage in it, that's it. That's the thing that keeps us going.
Absolutely, yeah.
Have you found that, so through the processes, and you've changed as an artist over the years, has there been elements where mental health, should we say, because if we immerse ourselves, because I from personal experience, putting so much time into recording with a band, and you put in all the effort and you do all the organising, and there is so much, like you were saying, there's so much weight added to the processes that you put yourself through, whether it's keeping the band together is a difficult thing, then you're trying to plan for festivals and trying to plan for recordings. This all affects your mental health to some degree. So how would you say that you might have tackled the mental health sort of side of things, if you've indeed
mental health? I think music, when you do it to any degree where you're trying to do something well, you're trying to write a good piece of music, record a good piece of music, perform it takes it out of you because you're pushing yourself. And it's only human that I guess that you want people to recognise the effort that you've put in. And when that doesn't happen, if you don't get the record deal, if Radio 1 aren't calling, all of this sort of a thing, it can be disappointing. So you have to... Your level of expectations is very real as well. Reduce that. And I've done stuff where I've spent far too long recording or doing whatever, and you realise, you do know that there's not balance in your life. You're not balancing it out with other people you should be with, or family, or other commitments that you've got, or things like that. You do know that it's lopsided, but then again, it's quite addictive, it's quite all-consuming, and all the rest of it. So if you've got that voice nagging at you that it's not quite balanced, it feels off, there's something not right, it's your choice to address that or ignore it. And it's not for me to say, it's everybody's journey. Sometimes obsessives and all the rest of it can it brings amazing stuff,
come out in
but
your music
at a price sometimes. So you decide the price you pay. So I would say I've been an obsessive person to do lots of albums, lots of recordings. Of course I have, and there are other things that have fallen by the wayside because of that. I try, as I've got older, I'm not saying I'm any wiser, but I try bring more balance into my life, and certainly the way approaching music and how we do it is I think one of the big things you say about holding bands together with Amy, or I started working with a harpist, a folk singer called Chantal as well. I'm very keen that there's no pressure on either of them. They come to record for me or rehearse or do a gig because they want to do it, but I can do the gig by myself, I can record by myself, so I have made myself slightly self-sufficient. So if Amy's unable to do something, I had to play a gig, but she was going to see Michael Bublé.
What? Bublé?
It must have been coming up to Christmas.
No, it was in summer. It was in the Royal Crescent, outside the Royal Crescent in Bath. It was beautiful. But
I understood where I was in the pecking order. Now, if I was all consumed that this gig had to be great, and I've been working towards it, and I'd have gone to, oh, Amy, where's your loyalty? All this sort of stuff. Where's your commitment? All this sort of stuff. Wow, that's not for me to put that on Amy.
Adds a different dynamic to the whole thing.
I could do it by myself.
Amy, what is it like to work with Richard?
Oh, well, I was thinking about this earlier, and it was about 17 years. How many years?
I think was 2007.
Yeah.
I think that's when you started
years.
recording. Yeah.
So in all that time, I've been in and out of so many bands, but we've been recording for that whole time and been playing for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
you've been the one consistent thing throughout all of it.
We argue all the time. No.
Well, there's always but the thing is, you have to have that element, because if you're going to create some beauty together, and it takes this clashing. It's okay to be working together, but actually, I think you will often have these clashes when you're trying to get it just so.
Well.
Right?
I can't say we experience that really. No. But I'll let Amy speak. It's not for me to say.
No, it's a real privilege to play on everything that Rich does. Music's amazing, and I pretty much turn up and play what I'm told, and sometimes and then probably make mistakes, and sometimes they stay.
Happy mistakes.
Some words change here and there. And
she's
things
really
like
good,
that.
because I don't get, again, she just knows it. Stop. Rewind.
I'll do it again.
But it's quite there's never
we
any.
don't know, and I know I get to know where things might go, and then it's like, oh no, you have done something different again. It's not where it's not the sort of music where you can improvise to.
Yeah, it is thought out.
It's very clever. Yeah, so it's been wonderful.
So we've got like a little bit of an idea of where you've come from in terms of your upbringing for the music.
Yeah.
We've kind of touched on some of the achievements in that process. What can we be looking forward to in the near future, or even further down the line? What have we got going on? Amy, first.
Oh, I bought an aerophone.
This is good.
So that is my future.
I've seen it on TV.
We watched it.
Yeah, that was just make something out quickly and have a little go. So yeah, I want to have an
we need to find an 80s band idea, right?
Yeah. So yeah, have a little play with the aerophone. I think. Yeah, that's
and
my
yourself,
future.
Richard.
That's what I was going to say.
Well, noting about that. Well, I've got I've just. Where are we now? Sunday. On Friday, released another solo album, Forked Road, which you mentioned, which Amy is on and Chantal are on. And I've kind of split into doing gigs with Amy and gigs with Chantal. The stuff I do with Amy is, at the moment, the more composed stuff. With Chantal, it's more storytelling. She's a folk storyteller.
Really good.
And probably about 50-60% structured, but 40% improvised.
Nice.
With harp, guitar, lots of effects, very eerie, very weird Wiltshire and Gothic, lots of myths and things like that.
We might have to do a reach out
so
to
we're doing
this young lady.
Oh yeah, say hello to Chantal.
Chantal.
Really
hello, Chantal.
Hey, Chantal.
We'll say hello.
Yeah, she'll say hello back, I'm sure. So doing that, but then the recording will carry on with both of them as I'm working. I'm working on an album with Matt Baber, who is a keyboard player and drummer in a progressive rock band called Sanguine Hum. I did one of the lockdown albums was with him, called imaginatively titled Baber Warman, and Baber Warman 2 is near completion.
You thought that one through as well.
I know, yeah, which Amy's on that as well. So I've got all that stuff going on, and I think what I'd like to do, because I've been working a little bit more with the improvised stuff with Chantal, and now Amy's got the Roland, the wind synth, is I've got a few more synth pedals as well, and I'm thinking that we'll start working in a more atmospheric and improvised way. Now she's got that, and we can do the effects. I gave you a pedal board the other day as well, so
fun.
So I think that's an area that I'd like to go into. I'm getting more I've always improvised recording, but of course if it goes wrong you can get the happy accidents. If it goes wrong you can start again, and so but recently I did some stuff with Brendan Hamley, who's a drummer.
Yes.
But he also absolutely loves electronic music, and I've done a couple of things with him, just completely improvised with him on the modular stuff on the devices, and me on an electric guitar through tons of pedals, and that was great. And that started opening me up more to improvising and doing the stuff with Chantal, and I'm sure this will go with Amy as well, but it will still have that kind of weird chord structures popping in and out. That's kind of my little signature, really.
We might have to kind of,
Yeah,
you know,
there's all sorts of stuff bubbling.
Do a bit of sculpting together.
Well, we'll arrange a show or something.
A future collab.
Yeah,
of some kind. I sense it. I'm going to write this down in my notes. Future collab.
It just seems to be the way things are naturally
and it will be,
really.
And that'll be Richie Wildman 2, 3. We'll try and think of it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Are we ready for a
We must be somewhere far into the depths of our podcast and our little chat. We must be coming to the tail end. I'm feeling a performance coming on.
Yes, so that you get supper, so that you get fed. Because, there's dinner going into the oven right after the show.
There is.
But you have to earn your food first.
Okay, well,
Right.
I hope I can remember how it goes.
Is there anything you would like to ask us? I mean, all this show is just us asking.
Well, we've heard quite a bit about your project that you've been doing, Madame Diabolique, and you are
Monsieur Magnifique.
Magnifique. So yeah, obviously there's a lot of theatrics, a lot of classical and ambient music, and narratives and dance, all sorts of stuff going on. So you know, how did this? Maybe there's something in the Swindon water or something that's making people venture out into these more esoteric worlds. But
Swindon is an absolute hotbed of talent, artists, musicians, writers. You wouldn't. I mean, it's unbelievable. When you walk down any street, you can knock on several doors, and you'll come across a painter, a writer. I mean, it is. Apparently, I heard a statistic a couple of years ago that Swindon was second only to Bristol per capita for number of artists. I mean, it comes second to Bristol, and you're competing with Liverpool, Manchester, Birmingham. You know.
Yeah.
But per capita,
I love the mural projects that have been going on.
Fabulous.
Really stunning work. Yeah.
We should be proud of this little town. We're in. You know, it's starting to take some cultural ownership. Whereas we've been living here for a while. I've been here nearly 30 years, and it's changed so much from being quite a happening place for a while with the Bruno rooms and dance scene, and then there was an underground scene, the music scene, which we were facilitating to some degree, and it seemed to have kind of washed away a little while. I think the town has taken a little bit of a battering from various quarters, and we've seen the place kind of change quite a lot, the music scene itself and everything else. And however, it's such a hotbed, and everywhere you look, I mean, some of the guests that we've had, we're so privileged to just walk up the top of the hill and find amazing, achieving people that are doing some incredible things, and so why shouldn't we be trying to get down that road? And we should be, and I think, you know, there's a new generation, and hopefully by doing this podcast, and we'll be reaching out to some of these the new generation. You know, you've been teaching some of them. Adriana teaches some of these young, fantastically talented young kids,
absolutely,
and adults as well, doing some things. So the Madame Diabolique, we're venturing out.
Yeah.
What's not to want to try? I mean, you know,
it's opening yourself up to the possibility, right? To probabilities of everything. You know, you don't close yourself just in one genre, or which you don't, and I don't. And I think it's a beautiful freedom. It offered such a beautiful freedom to do this. There was a character and a piece of music to start with, and then for some years nothing, and then the character started to grow out of the furniture and the floor. I'm not saying things, just metaphorically speaking, and it wanted to be born, and wanted to have a story around it, because the character wasn't enough just in herself, Madame Diabolique, but she has kind of woven that story around herself. She met Monsieur Magnifique. Monsieur Magnifique. He obviously brought his side of the story, and yeah, the project has grown into this kind of amalgamation of sound, dance, acting, poetry.
Which we've all done that, and with our fantastically talented producer and cameraman Matt, who was heavily
Matthew
involved in the whole
Hamilton
process,
Right, I see.
script writing it all.
MHG
And
videos. You can check Matt out on Facebook.
that you can. And so I think we might. Should we tail this whole wonderful
Yeah,
little
let's-
chat with her?
Yeah.
And celebrate this
Performance,
beautiful
right?
meeting with Amy and Richard today with just a bit of music. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for
Yeah, thank
inviting
you
us.
for
It's been a
having us.
really nice
Yeah.
afternoon. Yeah, thank
you.
you. It's been
Lovely.
great.
Swilling the coffee and swinging the lantern, because it's nice to catch up from all these years. And
Yeah.
so we're going to do a song. Adriana and myself have.
We're still.
Does it have a name? Yeah.
It does, doesn't it?
Better Man. Well, we hope
We like songs like this, don't we?
we do. Well, we hope you like this, ladies and gentlemen. With a little bit of an improv-y.
Yes.
Let's do it. Spent so much time on the wrong road, lost in looking for the way out. Cost me more than you ever know. It's still on my heart. Now that mine is free. Don't you wait for myself. How would you feel? What would you do if you failed? How would you feel? I'm beside you, I am. I'm beside you, I stand. I'm beside you, I am. I'm a better human here as I stand. Beside you, I am. Beside you, I stand. I'm a better human.
was
Thank
great.
you. It's fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, Richard and Amy.
Thank you.
At the Nexus Art Project. See you next week. See you next Sunday.
We will be having two fantastic guests next week. We've
Paul
got
Donaldson.
Dr. Paul Donaldson,
And we have Harry Daring, an artist.
Swindon artist.
Swindon artist, yes. Both of them, in their own capacity, one being scientist, the other one being a visual artist, work with light. And that is next week.
And we'll be an enlightening. We'll see you next week.